Hello, everyone. This is the 11th episode of the Don't Sink podcast. Today, I get a chance to sit down with Sukun Chopra. Sukun is an advocate of emotional intelligence and a conflict resolution coach. She is the co-founder of Emotion Smart and the podcast host of Becoming an Epic Being. As a passionate writer who loves sharing value, she also has a newsletter, Epic Insights by Sukun on Beehive. Please enjoy.
First questions I have for you is where did you grow up, and how did where you grow up influence what you chose as a career?
So I grew up between Sydney, New Delhi, and London, but I spent the majority of my growing up years in New Delhi, which is where I went to my school.
Okay.
And I didn't really have like a straight career path. Wasn't one of those lucky, clear kids that I had like this plan of what I wanted to do in my life.
Right.
I just sort of winged most of my life, to be honest,
Mm-hmm.
and didn't really enjoy the education system at all because teaching style kind of sucked. The way teachers
Yeah.
taught and what they taught, I didn't have any interest in anything until I actually fell in love with psychology in my high school. And then I went to do my master's in Sydney for like management psychology and HR.
Nice.
So yeah, I was involved. I'm kind of skipping here the parts, but like I did get involved in human capital for a few years before I decided to leave that and venture down this path of conscious living because I guess I realized that my ultimate passion is to just understand why we humans are wired the way we are.
Mm-hmm.
And so that led me to pursuing like psychology more in a deeper level and a lot of like other modalities of just human behavior. And recently, I've just sort of like spent a lot of time investing and like establishing my presence in the EQ space.
Right.
Yeah.
So, being a conscious living facilitator, can you kind of explain your role and what that is?
Yeah, so I think that was when I initially started out, but right now I'm
Mm-hmm.
just like an EQ advocate. But to summarize, like conscious living is, as the name kind of suggests, like living with self-awareness and just being more conscious in how you show up in the world and being more cognizant of your impact and how you're making others feel. And of course, there's
Mm-hmm.
a ton of mindset stuff, self-awareness stuff, and living authentically. So I would like create spaces for people to engage in meaningful connection as a part of that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. But now I've really focused on EQ, and I just launched an app called Emotion Smart, which is basically meant to help people level up their levels of EQ, which is something we've always neglected, thanks to the
Yeah.
traditional teaching system. So yeah, basically it's about I'm around EQ and conflict resolution, and that is also like it comes as a part of conscious living because all of this stuff
Yeah.
forms very deep in the gambit of conscious living.
Can you explain what EQ and just emotional intelligence overall is and what it looks like?
Yeah, I'm not going to dive into the bookish version of this and the
Right.
definitions on Google, but I just want to
Yeah.
say that EQ in a nutshell is basically being aware of your own emotions and managing them well while understanding the impact of your actions on others, because that is where half the world has got it wrong, really wrong.
Okay.
And this is evident right from relationships with adults, obviously, the corporate world, and parenting, of course, because we have so many blind spots and so many ways of projecting our patterns onto others.
Mm-hmm.
And unless you're really aware, you're just falling in the same trap and passing down your patterns from one gen to the next generation. So EQ is basically being aware of, I think, managing your own and also others'
Mm-hmm.
emotions. But that's like the next level because you can't really
Right.
do shit about anyone else unless you know what your own
Yeah.
emotions are about.
Exactly. Um, did your family influence you to have these insights about emotional intelligence, or is it something you kind of ventured on your own?
My family's always been very liberal in terms of encouraging me to do whatever I want to do and study.
Mm-hmm.
So being very blessed, not the typical Asian family background where like do math or do science or do
Yeah.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this really came as a part of my own intrinsic interest in just people because I think I'm very much a people's person. And so that is how I yeah, really start to dive deeper into this, and yeah, just one thing led to the other. Then just give me
Nice.
1 second. Sorry, needs to
hmm
edit over here. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
So is this something you see as more of a generational issue or something that affects all people of all ages?
I think it affects all people of all ages because you're very likely to see people who are in their 40s and 50s act out like literally kids. Like, you see,
hmm
like just some actually, a lot of adults sometimes are kids stuck in adult bodies because they haven't done the
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
And I think there's more awareness around these things with Gen Zs for sure. But in
hmm
terms of the actual implication and impact, I think there's a lot of work to do even now. Because you wouldn't have things like, whether it's ghosting or whether it's cancel culture or bullying and stuff,
Yeah.
because all of these reflect a lack of EQ, by the way, which people don't get
hmm
they don't get it, like they don't draw the link, obviously, but it is very much related.
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely see that connection.
Yeah.
Um, can you explain your app and what like what
It's
like the
like a
interface
web
is?
app. Yeah,
hmm
it's a web app called emotion-smart.org. And it's basically an interactive course-based web app where we've divided the whole thing into different segments and like 7 chapters or modules where
Okay.
it's pretty interactive. So I guess it's content-based. So people who love reading is like a book, but like in a e-form,
Right.
electronic form. And yeah, like each level takes you through certain chapters, starting from like, self-awareness to understanding what emotions are and your own emotions. And then we dive deeper into how you can really deal with people and express yourself and have tough conversations and managing your emotions, your moods, your anxieties, like all that stuff. So it's pretty in depth.
Yeah.
And I guess there's always more to cover in this subject, but I think it's a good start for someone who's looking to just become more emotionally intelligent and increase their impact, because
Yeah.
ultimately it is about living happier. Because why would people bother doing this, right? It's really the outcome is about like, you know, acing their mindset, mastering their mind, like, acing their
Yes.
happiness levels and their impact in the world.
Yeah, that's a tool that everyone could use for sure in their daily life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I think
Do
that's
you see this
the
as a gap in your generation, like EQ?
yeah, huge gap. Um,
Yeah. In
and
what way?
I think my generation is very caught up in the loop in the swarm of instant gratification. And
Yes, absolutely. The dopamine
yeah,
generation. Yeah.
yeah, they just looking for the next dopamine hit. They want
Yeah.
the Instagram likes. They want, the TikTok views,
Yeah.
and they want it now. They don't want to wait for it. They don't want to feel like they had to put much effort or time into it.
100%.
And another thing is, I feel like a lot of my generation's self identity is tied to their online identity, which
Absolutely.
I feel like we're having a hard time making a distinction between who we are and who we are perceived as on
Mm,
the internet.
that's so well said.
And I think, yeah, I don't know what they would do to mitigate that, but in terms of using technology to make us more aware and more um, emotionally intelligent, like your
Mm,
app does, I mean, I think that's a step in the right direction versus just making more apps to keep our faces on a
yep,
screen watching
exactly.
negative things all day.
Yeah, instant
Yeah,
gratification is definitely a big, big one. And of course, that ambiguity around your own sense of self versus your social sense of self.
yeah,
It is a bit of an identity crisis, to be honest.
yeah. And I think with like this new uprising of AI, a lot of people are thinking like a technology of like in this new negative connotation.
Yeah,
But what I want to do is kind of shift and change that because at the end of the day, I feel like we have more control than we give ourselves credit for. And if
so
we can start
true.
using technology in positive ways,
Mm-hmm.
in educational and like informing ways, we could change so many people's lives because technology has brought us all together already, but we just
So
use it
true.
for the wrong reason. We use it
Yeah.
to spread negativity. We could do the exact opposite, and I mean, it would have a worldwide effect.
I mean, bang on, because that's just a tool. It's up to us how we use it and leverage it. And we can't
Right.
blame everything else for our problems because a
Hmm.
lot of the stuff today is self inflicted.
Yeah.
And AI, social media is all there just for how it depends on how we use it. So the buck stops with us, and the onus is very much on us.
Yeah. It's on us. And I think I've seen a lot of hopeful things in terms of the way we're using technology to bring us together in positive ways. For example, Duolingo, like that's one of my favorite apps.
Yeah.
Um, just because it allows everyone in the world free access to learning a new language. And
What are you learning on that? What language are you
um,
learning?
I'm currently learning Japanese.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Cool.
yeah, it's an amazing app because it's
Mm.
engineered to work like TikTok and Instagram.
Yes.
So you get that instant gratification, but
Yeah.
it's not in the form of like, models on Instagram.
Constant validation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
from
in the form
people. Yeah.
of, you're learning something. So it's even more gratification, I feel like, than you get from Instagram because when you scroll on these social media websites all day, you get these dopamine hits, but then when you're done, you really walk away with nothing. So then you kind of feel like
Mm.
you wasted your time. But with
Yeah.
Duolingo, you walk away and you feel like I spent my time productively. I learned 5 new words.
True.
I think just examples of that, like that, just using technology to bring people together other than, divide us, which is it's pretty much done for the
Yeah.
last decade to 15 years.
Exactly.
So where do you see your app in the future, like in 5 years, fleshed out and hopefully global and worldwide?
Yeah, well, hopefully it would be the go-to app for companies, schools, and anyone who wants to just increase their EQ game. Um, I mean, I guess a big part of that would be partnerships and affiliations, and I
Hmm.
guess a bit of influencer marketing because that is where the real deal lies these days.
Yeah,
Fortunately or unfortunately, that's the world we're in. But yeah,
yeah,
just like where people, it's a very easy tool to use as well, and it gives you chances to answer questions for yourself, so you have control of your own journey, and
okay,
it's confidential because we don't have access to those inputs. It's just for people, and yeah, it's pretty safe to share what they go through and just have like a journaling thing but online
yeah,
on the app itself. So yeah.
yeah. People need that outlet of emotion to, you know, not bottle it up and take it out in another way,
Yeah,
to be able to have that space to express themselves genuinely and authentically.
exactly.
Yeah, I could
I
help so
mean,
many
you're
people.
right, because people either fluctuate between like suppressing their emotions and feelings and compromising their authentic confidence, or being obnoxious and nightmare for everyone else around them, like really
Yeah,
projecting and blaming the world and throwing tantrums and fits and whatnot. So it's really, really, really like key to get the balance and yeah, stay in between.
yeah, and with when I think of emotional intelligence, I think of like the first thing that comes to my mind is like educating people on how many emotions there are, because I feel like
Yes, yes.
we have
Very
like this.
reductionist views of happy and sad, and there's
Yeah,
so much more. So much more.
yeah, and people don't know what they feel. They feel
Mm,
a way, and then they have this label that they were taught to put on it, and it's so much more nuanced than that. And
100%.
it's so hard to navigate if you have like six options of how I could feel. Like
Exactly.
it's hard to
Yeah, we
describe yourself to other people.
Yeah, we covered that as well because there's actually a term for that, which is emotional granularity, which is
Hmm.
basically about expanding and building on your emotional vocabulary. So you know exactly what you're feeling at some point of time and not just settling
Nice.
with the very broad emotions we learned in school,
Yeah.
bubbly, happy, sad, angry. Like there's a lot of nuance, like you said, to it. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And not only that, I feel like emotional intelligence um it's felt more it's felt in more places than just the mind. I feel like
Oh,
just me
yes.
personally, from my own personal experience with having visceral emotions. I mean, I feel certain emotions in like organs or like body parts, or like I can feel an
Yes.
emotion in my arm. I can feel an emotion in my chest. I mean, I think it's so much of a body mind um relationship, like both coinciding with each other. I don't think it's like
Mm.
all emotions are in the mind, because that's what they tell you. They'll tell you like, oh, well, it's
No,
just
have
all
you
in
read
your
the book or
mind.
heard of the book, The Body Keeps Score? It's all in the body.
I've heard of that book. Yeah, heard of
Yeah.
that book.
So what you're saying is very much, it very much speaks to that. Yes.
Yeah, and fitness and keeping up with your health has a lot to do with how you feel. I've learned that. Yeah, working
Mm.
out, getting those endorphins, and
Yeah.
just putting your body through a situation where it knows it's gonna go through a stressful situation, but then it also
Mm.
knows how good it will feel afterwards once you get
True.
through it. That cycle to me is very important, because on days I don't work out, I notice like I feel gross, like I feel sluggish, I feel,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's like some things wrong. I start getting anxious, and it's like it's just because I didn't do a, like a simple workout routine, because my body just got so used to it. So that what kind of woke me up to like how much our bodies and minds are connected in terms of emotion, which is
Yes,
fascinating.
absolutely. It is. I mean, the body has its own intelligent mechanism that we really underestimate. And if you think about it, the root of anxiety attacks is actually in this, because we don't
Mm,
consciously know what's going on, but the body has its way of showing up with some attack or reaction. And in
right.
fact, the other day, my friend had to go to the doctor because out of nowhere, just randomly in the middle of the day, he's at work, and he starts having like palpitations and just hot flushes, and he
Oh
can't breathe,
no.
and he had no idea what's going on, because consciously there was nothing, like he was fine and quote unquote normal and just another day at work.
Right.
But it did turn out to be an anxiety attack, and the root of that is basically very, very subconscious. Yeah, because it's something that's
Yeah.
very, very deeply suppressed, and something might have triggered that
Mhm.
on an unknowing level, and it just came out as a reaction. So everything is in the body, whether we know it or not.
Yeah, it's so fascinating to me.
Yeah,
Just that, like, how much we don't know is
exactly.
is amazing. It's crazy how like we learn new things about human psychology every single day.
Hmm.
Um, do you how do you feel about how the Western world is using pharmacology to handle our emotions in terms of just I don't know, like SSRIs and all different types of medications that we use to try to like balance emotion? Do you feel like it's uh we're in the right direction, or we're taking a step back?
No, I'm not really a fan of allopathy at all. Also, because I'm
Hmm.
from India, I'm Indian, and I really believe in holistic health and Ayurveda, if you're familiar with that.
Hmm. Yeah.
I think the pharmaceutical industry is obviously the biggest money minter, because that's where they get the money from, selling drugs. And I
Yeah.
don't think they dive deep enough to understanding why certain people have some symptoms. And the easiest thing, of course, and the laziest thing, I think, is to just prescribe medication, which more often than not actually ends up harming people than doing
Mm.
good to them. Like, it's more damaging.
Yeah.
So there's so many cases of people who have taken Prozac or whatever and ended up, like, having hallucinations, or not just that, but like just feeling worse than they were. And
Yeah.
just don't think it's like a long term sustainable solution. Like, it's not. It's just a shortcut to suppress, because you're suppressing something. You aren't dealing with the root
Yeah.
cause. You're suppressing it. I'm
Yes.
not ruling it out completely, because I'm sure there are some cases that genuinely need medication, and that's completely fine. But I think it's really, really overdone and out of proportion.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that point's very important, that we are suppressing something that's deeper, that I think we're maybe afraid to overcome or to face. But I mean, it's so much easier to just take a pill and
Medicine,
feel
yeah.
better for
It's
today.
exactly
I
instant,
think,
right? Instant gratification. There it
yeah,
is.
yeah, it's that convenience that people are seeking instead of actual
Doing the
healing
work.
and, yeah,
Yeah.
overcoming the challenge. I read a um, I had read a peer-reviewed study about SSRIs saying that it actually brings your baseline of dopamine up over time. So then when you
Mm-hmm.
stop using it, because SSRIs are only supposed to be diagnosed in a 6 to 8 week time frame, and then they're supposed to wean you off. Most people take them for years.
Oh
So
wow.
using them for months and months and months, your baseline dopamine, it may have been right here when you started, but now that you're used to this SSRI every day, it's up here, then you'll stop and then you'll have that drop. And that's what sends people into depressions, uh, you know,
Mm.
manic states, anxiety, all sorts of different symptoms. But I think attacking childhood trauma is a big way to
It is.
mitigate a lot of that stuff, because a lot of things that we're fighting with in our adult lives happen within like the first 5 to 10 years of our life, which
Yeah,
is
this
also
actually
crazy.
called, sorry, one sec. It's actually
Mhm.
called dopamine depletion, which is
Mhm.
what you're saying. It reduces or it shifts your baseline levels and affects your well-being overall. Because you keep on
Okay.
having these drugs or anything else that like feels great in the moment, but your actual baseline levels are being depleted constantly, and that just
Mhm.
affects your natural levels of enthusiasm, motivation, and everything else that the drugs, the this thing is responsible for, dopamine.
Yeah. How do you guys in the eastern side of the hemisphere of the world? How do you guys go about dealing with anxiety and depression, or do you guys more acknowledge it as not something as chronic as we do in the West? Because when you say you have depression in the West, it's more like a stamp of diagnosis that can't be fixed, and you just have to deal with instead of heal.
I think there are different ways of looking at this in the West as well, because many of my friends, especially in the US and the UK and Europe, are actually
Hmm.
very conscious in terms of how they deal with their health. And in
Hmm.
the last few years, maybe the last 5 years or decade or so, there's been a lot of awareness around holistic wellness, and more so in the West than India, because Indians, it's this all this stuff came from here, by the way. I read it up,
Yeah,
but we guys have like forgotten this stuff, and is now picking up in the West in different, fancy terms and fancy forms. But yeah, of course, there's therapy here. There's medication here as well, and there's more traditional routes of dealing with this stuff. So it's very subjective. There's no like universal way in India of dealing with this, because I think the world where we are, things are pretty global thanks to
yeah,
exposure and everything. So it's not like things are very, very different culturally, in at least in terms of these things. But of course, a lot of the knowledge and awareness comes from here. But the youth seems to have forgotten that, and it's now gone more to the West in certain pockets.
yeah. I'm seeing that shift, change, and but I think on a positive note, I think my generation is probably the least trusting of government out of all the generations.
Yes, very
S-
woke.
Yeah, and I hope that they can take that distrust and actually use it as some transfer into an actual action and initiative to, you know, be more self-sufficient, be, self-educate, and not rely on any big corporation or big entity to, you know, save you
Mm.
or heal you or give you shelter or give you food. I think people are, at least in the communities that I grew up in, a lot of people are very reliant on the government for one reason or another, and it kind of gives them this safe space, this cozy spot where they're comfortable and they don't have to work.
Yeah.
They can just sit in their house and collect a check, and their health will deteriorate along with their mental health will deteriorate,
Mm.
and then it gets to a point where they get diagnosed with something, and then they get in
Yeah.
a panic, and then here's this pill that'll help you, but then this pill is also going to give you so much other side effects that you didn't see.
Yeah, it's a
And
shit show
that's,
completely.
yeah, it's a cycle. It's a vicious cycle. And I just want people to educate themselves on different ways they can, you know, hop off the hamster wheel and start a new system of healing. And I mean, there's not one way, but it's definitely not the way we're doing right now.
Yeah. I mean, new system, it's
Yeah.
all there. Everything exists right there. It's just about tapping into it and leveraging it and using it because everything is right there. It's all
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. I mean, my mom is a yoga instructor, and I
Oh,
know
wow.
yoga originated in India. So
Mm-hmm.
I think as we just become more of a global world, we can, through the internet, definitely just connect with so many different cultures and learn from how other cultures go about mental health. Um, because this binary system we have of like you're like Western and Eastern, it's like we don't live in that kind of world anymore. To me, like once we got on social media and technology connected all the continents, I mean, we're one globe, and I think we need
Everyone,
to start looking
exactly.
at it like that. And I
True.
think the more we look at it like that, the more we'll get closer to having, a global perspective on mental health and healing and emotional intelligence.
Yeah, I love how you put that.
Yeah, I don't like the uh, you know, east west, country versus country. I like the
It's all very
tribalist.
politicized.
Yeah, very tribal, and I think it's just primitive. Like we
Yeah.
don't we don't live like that anymore. Like we're not. This isn't 10,000 BC. Like we've moved on. Like
You're so funny.
like I can have a conversation with somebody in India, and I live in Ohio, and it doesn't. It's by the click of a button. So I think we should embrace technology and let it be the tool we use to foster, global
Yeah,
emotional
for
growth.
sure. I love that. So well said. Exactly.
So, um, when you were in Australia, how was your time spent in Australia?
Oh, most of it was just like university, like just like 4 or 5 years of university. It's pretty chill because ours is very laid back as well compared to
Yeah.
maybe the rest of the world, at least in the education sense. So
Mm.
pretty laid back.
Yeah, I have a fascination with Australia. I just think it's a very scary place. Like,
Scary.
um,
You've been there.
no, I've
You
never been
haven't.
there, and I don't
That's
think I will go.
why.
Great people, beautiful people. It's just the animals, the reptiles.
Oh God, you keep watching the wrong stuff on YouTube. There's
Yeah,
nothing. I survived five years of Sydney without any of this stuff. I
yeah.
survived okay.
Every time I see Australia, it's like some new Tasmanian
That's so
animal
funny.
that's like, or some spider that will bite you once and it's over with.
It's like saying America is scary because the Amazon forest. It's not. It's just one part of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, as they say,
Yeah,
only one way to find out is to go to make the trip.
yeah. I'd love to visit. Uh,
Yeah.
they have so much like wildlife. Like it's such a big country. It's a bit larger country than I think most people think it is.
It's pretty large. Less people, but very lot of landscape.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw a video on YouTube that was showing Australia like compared to the United States, like the same size as the United States,
Mm.
and
But I'm
I
sure
I
far
thought it was
less
like
people.
I thought it was like a like an island maybe the size of Texas or something like, but it's just
No.
it's
It's very
gigantic.
spread out.
Yeah, I do like kangaroos though, so
Mm.
hopefully
Exactly.
I
And
can see it.
koalas.
Yeah, very unique place in terms of the wildlife.
It's so funny. Yep.
So, are you much of a traveler? Do you like seeing different places in different countries?
Yes, always been a travel bug, travel person. Been traveling since I think my first flight was when I was a year and a half or 2 years old.
Okay.
So yeah, love traveling.
How
It
many
just
countries have you
exposes
been
you to so
to?
many cultures and people.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot I still haven't seen, but like Australia, of course, parts of Asia, Europe, not all of Europe, still a lot to see in Europe. It's funny because I live in India, but haven't seen much of India as I have seen of overseas.
Right.
But US I've been to. Haven't really done Latin America or Africa. That's on my list for
Hmm.
sure. Like Tokyo, an African safari, like in Kenya or like, oh
Yeah.
my God, that's like on my list. So yeah,
Nice. Yeah, I'm the exact
yeah.
opposite. I haven't been anywhere outside the United States, but I've been pretty much everywhere inside the United States. But
Outside, you said, or inside? What did you say?
I've been to probably like 35 out of 50 states,
Mm-hmm.
but I haven't been anywhere outside the United States.
Cool.
I hope to one day get to somewhere out of here. You've been great.
Nice.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
comprehensive information and your answers. You're very insightful and informative.
Glad it helped. Happy to be of service.
So, where can the people find you, follow you, and you know, keep up with everything you're doing?
Sure. Thanks for asking. So, my Instagram, I am on Instagram, by the way. So, my Instagram handle is Sukun C, which is SUKUNC. And the website I mentioned is emotion-smart.org for emotion intelligence. And my podcast is Becoming an Epic Being. And I also have a
Nice,
newsletter on Beehive called Epic Insights by Sukun. So yeah, those are my four things to reach me out on.
nice.
Yeah.
Go follow her on all those platforms. Make sure you keep up with her, and make sure you get on her app and get your emotional intelligence where it's got to be, because we all got work to do.
Oh yes. Thanks for having me, Noah. I
Yes, it
appreciate
was
this.
a lovely time having you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
I am talking about genuine peace, the kind of peace that makes life on earth worth living.
Bottom line, there were no weapons of mass destruction.
Totally unjustified and brutal invasion of Iraq. Of Ukraine.
A new world order. A new world order can emerge. A new era. No, don't.
And Hillary are demons.
Feeling peace in our time,
What's Will still want to run for vote?
peace in all time.